All right, we're back with another episode of Backyard Conversations, and I took a trip all the way over to Josh Sutton's house with Sutton Outdoor.
Chilly.
Yes.
What is it, -3 degrees?
I think my truck was saying -6 by the time I got here.
Yes.
So it's a cold one today, and it was in the mid-30s yesterday, and we were trying to get some work done, and today, no work. So I called Josh and asked him if I could take the long 10-minute drive over this afternoon and have a conversation. I've been wanting to get you on since I started. We kind of talked about it a couple times, so figured we need to make it happen.
For sure. I'm proud of you for getting this podcast off the ground and doing what it takes to record these every week. It's a lot of work. It's something I've always wanted to do but never put the energy into, so I'm proud that you're doing it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's been really fun, and one of my selfish reasons for doing it obviously is to talk to people, and our friendship goes back way further than Instagram.
Yes.
So, and I have, if I have somebody on like you that has been on a lot of podcasts, I mean, you got me started on being in podcasts. So,
that's right.
So if you've been on a lot of podcasts, you've told your story a lot of times.
Yes.
I know your story pretty well. I hope, people listening know your story. And if they don't, there's so many great podcasts you've been on that they can find it. So I think we'll just kind of jump into, I kind of want to share with people a little bit about our relationship and how we met, because it's kind of a funny story.
It is.
Do you want to tell it or me?
Oh, you go, and I'll fill in the gaps.
All right. So we were on a date. No, wait, that's not how it was.
Oh.
No.
We were at the
dental
gala.
Yes. Yes, it was a fundraiser for dental
cancer awareness.
Yes. Our wives were both in the dental hygiene field.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat down at a table with suits and ties on, all dressed up for an event we shouldn't have been at.
Very awkward.
And kind of looked at each other, introduced ourselves, whatever. And, you said something about, you don't look like you're supposed to be here.
Yeah, you don't look like you fit in here. You don't either.
I'll take that as a compliment. So then we got to talking and realized we were both landscapers and
in the same area.
Yes, living 10 minutes apart.
You were like, where at? Liberty area? Me too.
Yep.
I've never heard of you. Well, I've never heard of you either. And I was just getting started in the business, and you had been around for a few years doing, was it your lawn care company at the time, or Scheller Lawn and Landscape?
Scheller Lawn and Landscape, yeah. So I think we met in 2014, probably.
Yeah,
probably about
that was
time.
right. I started February is when I went out on my own with Sutton Outdoor. So
yeah. So that was right after you started then, because those were usually April, something like that. So that's pretty crazy. And had you just moved back from
Iowa? I worked down at Embassy for a year or so. Maybe the second time it was like 6 months, and then I realized it was time to cut ties and go out on my own. And I just wanted to do more hardscaping and some cool projects that were rolling in my brain. I had a lot of good contacts, and they were all ready to go with big backyard spaces. So my wife gave me the green light and said, it's time for you to go out on your own. So
that's awesome. And it's been fun because we kind of got started with a friendship there, and we kept connected. And I think what's been really fun is we've never really been competition. I don't think we've probably competed against projects, but
not too long after that is when you were texted me and was like, hey, I'm thinking about getting out. And I was like, oh, man, we just got to know each other. And then it was cool because you were becoming our sales rep.
Yes.
And that was awesome because you almost became a part of our company through that. And you were bending over backwards to help us be successful. And you were like the model salesman that everybody hopes and dreams to be. But it was pretty cool, though. So
yeah, I think what's interesting about being a sales rep after being a contractor is that you kind of know what people need. Mm-hmm. And I realized how terrible I was as a customer when I started being a sales rep, and was like, I was trying to, get things the next day, or, be unprepared, or, all the things. And I was just trying to help contractors be more prepared, so it helped me be a better sales rep. And then also just, I feel like sometimes the people at the dealers are sometimes they've never been field experienced. They've never been through the issues. If it rains, they go inside of the office, or they just have a slow day where, for us as contractors, if it's raining, we're not making money, but we're also planning for the next day or planning for the next week or projects coming up, or trying to get materials lined out, or customer visits, or like all kinds of stuff that we have to go through. And so those days are really busy for contractors that are in the field a lot trying to get things done.
Sure.
So it was fun having you as a customer too.
It was great. We were sad when you gave us the news that you were going to Mirage, but we were also excited for you. But it was like, oh man, we lost our inside man that's been helping us. And you would bring us stone on a Saturday or whatever. Oh, I got a bag or two of clips or something. You'd bring us from your house, even if you weren't even working or whatever. And it was really nice to have that kind of service. So,
yep, I appreciate that. It was fun. I had a good time, and I learned a ton. I think that's what's helping me be better now with what I'm doing. So
for sure, it's cool to see both sides.
And so I think what's interesting too is like from our relationship, and then what you grew after, like when I became a sales rep for a dealer. You've really grown this Northland, like just camaraderie, and
the Northland Syndicate is what we nicknamed it.
Yes,
unofficially.
Yep. So talk about that a little bit, because that's really cool what you're doing with that.
I've just always enjoyed having the community over competition aspect. We all rented space from Site One, kind of where we started back, kind of unique. I think that's kind of what brought us all together.
Right.
We're so close there that Site One's kind of the hub, and we all started renting space, myself and Kyle from Atlas, and I think Jake came in. He rented my space after I bought my property out here, but Jake from Complete came in, and then Zach Hinkle was always kind of the outlier and like leading the pack in hardscaping, and he went through some transition, and then he realized that joining our community was pretty cool too. So we've all been sharing ideas, and you got out of the field and then back into the field, and so we were.
Thanks for welcoming me.
Yes, we're welcoming you back in. So it's just cool. I don't really know. I think we're all in a similar boat. We're smaller companies, but we all have an eye for like wanting to be excellent. We all want to do award-winning projects, and we all want to do our best and be at the top of the industry, and not. We're not just throwing garbage in the ground and, leaving. So we're all wanting to get it, the extra education, ICPI and the NCMA and everything that's out there, just to try to better each other. And so I think we're all in similar mindsets, I guess, for business. And we all are kind of taking our own individual avenues so we can learn from each other. Like you've been focused on pools, and I do the irrigation and some fencing and other aspects. Right. We've kind of done it all for years, and we have a good knowledge of construction and everything as well. And then, Jake and some of the other guys are focused on drainage and some of the smaller work and different aspects as well. So I think we all have our specialties, so we all kind of feed on each other. And it's been nice to have to share contacts, and if a job's not a good fit for me, I can refer them to you, or
Yep. And Jake and I did a project next to each other this year,
which was cool.
And we didn't even no fist fights started or anything. It was pretty interesting. Yeah. So I think it's interesting because I traveled a lot when I was doing sales, and it's a really unique thing that's going on, and even some of the South guys too in the Kansas City area. I talked to Tracy the other day, and we were chatting. Tracy Young with Integrity, and so like there's just I think I guess I have a little bit different relationship with a lot of different companies because I was their sales rep, so we've still kept our relationship going. But then I think it's really cool when you can go on a hunting trip with another company and talk business on the way and on the way back, or and it's been really, really cool. So when I go other places and see like they hardly even talk to each other, they feel like, they're infringing on them a little bit, or they're trying to get inside information, and we just kind of share information,
Yeah, there's so many opportunities for work out there that it's rare that we even compete for the same job. Or if that did come up, and just be like, no, this is Craig's job. He's my buddy. I'm out, or whatever. And, we're transparent about that. Or if we get a lead in, well, hey, did you meet with Mary Smith? Yeah, we did, but she's got a low budget. She wants a $60,000 job, but wants to spend. Well, that's what she put on my my internet form. So they're like, just don't waste your time.
Yeah,
so
it's funny when the messages come across the group text. Yeah. Oh, I talked to her.
Yeah. So
and then we talk probably every day almost.
Daily, yeah. At least through Instagram or message each other and talk each other off the ledge sometimes, but also can celebrate victories and or if one of us needs help, so the truck's broke down or we need a load of rock or whatever. And we do all kind of share equipment as we need it, so we don't all have to buy all the attachments for the mini skid or the big excavator or the dump truck. So it's been really cool that way too.
I might have some stuff coming you can try.
Yes. I'm excited to see what all my friends are buying.
It's tax season.
Yes.
I don't think I need to buy anything. I just have a problem. I think I have a problem. But I see the need and efficiencies, and it's really we could probably talk on labor a little bit. I think it's going to change. I think there's going to be more people looking for work. I think my whole thing with the first 2 years of this business has been to get us in a position to have the equipment and the tools that we need for the projects we're doing.
Yeah,
and then build the team that can be efficient with those. And that means a slow growth on the employee side and faster growth on the equipment side. And but it's challenging because we both, you and I, have really high standards for our work. And so we're not always easy on the people that come to apply or work for us or try to work for us. So it can be challenging and finding the right people. So what are you noticing about that?
Like, Jeremy and I have worked together for 8 years, plus we've worked together 4 years in Charlotte. So probably 12, 13 years we've been a team, and we're brothers, so we have that bond too. So when new guys come in, they just feel like they don't really fit or click with us.
Sure.
Like we have an unspoken relation. Like on the job, we don't even talk much. And he'll ask me questions occasionally. He still kind of refers to me as the crew lead, I guess.
Yeah.
We're a crew of 2 right now, but it is hard for people to come in from the outside. It seems like high schoolers and stuff tend to fit in better.
Yeah.
But like grown men, almost, I don't know if they feel demasculated or what, but they just don't feel like they can hang with us, and they don't stick around long. So and it's a challenge. I definitely want to grow beyond the 2 of us next year. We're both getting tired of doing the labor work, and we still enjoy it, and the end product's cool, but it's been a strenuous year on both of us this year. So I don't know if how long we'll be able to stick it out together, but it's trying to grow, like you said, get some more equipment, make it a more appealing place to work. And when you step back and look at the work we're doing, it's not glamorous or fun all the time. You're in the mud, you're in the cold, you're breathing some dust sometimes. We try to buy equipment to help with that, but in the end, you get to step back and see what you built, and it's better than just pushing papers or, just clocking in and clocking out every day. Like you have something to be proud of. So I want to try to convey that to people that are younger that maybe don't want to take the college route, or I went through college, but I still ended up back here,
right?
Which I feel like it's helped me a lot, but just want to tap into that love that I found early on of creating things with my hands and building things, and I feel like it's just getting lost in this world.
Yeah.
But there's still people out there that have that desire. Like they didn't just stop making people with that desire, Like
right,
we both have it. And I'm trying to think back, like within me, like even when I was 5, I was out in my dad's dirt pile. We grew up on a farm, and Jeremy and I were together then, digging rocks, and we had piles of concrete block. We'd make these cool structures, and I'd do paths through the dirt pile and pull all the weeds and make it look nice. And I think it was just intrinsic in us.
Yeah.
And it just, all the stars aligned, and we've been able to work together, which we probably take for granted.
Yeah.
That we're brothers that can work together, but we I think we need some space a little bit too sometimes, but I think bringing some other employees in would help with that, because we used to be separated with 2 crews for a while. Right. We had 4 guys plus us, and I'd take 1 crew, and then he'd work on hardscapes. And as we had big projects, we could spend some time apart and then come back together, where this year we've really been in the truck together almost every day. So I think that's kind of what has flared some tempers and made things a little rockier than usual. But we still had a very successful year, and
let's chat about 2022.
Sure.
I mean, it's kind of coming. Yeah. I don't know if you like 2020 was crazy. Like the spring, you're calling me like, I don't know if I'm gonna have to close or we can't even work. You know, like, and then all of a sudden things kind of opened up. The phones were blowing up.
Yeah,
people were spending money.
Home,
they all wanted they wanted new backyards, and that's when I called you in like July or something. I was like, hey man, I'm thinking about. I'm tired of sitting in my basement doing Zoom calls. You know, like. And you were like, man, now might be the time, you know. So, but I don't know if we're coming to an end of that or, you know, things are changing. Everything changes and there's cycles to everything. But like, share some wins and challenges of 2022.
Geez, it was a long year. So we ended 2020 with kind of having a revolving door of employees, and then there was the whole nobody wants to work, everybody wants their government checks, and so I kind of just gave up on hiring. I'm not an HR manager. I want to build stuff and design things and sell jobs. So I was focused on that. And Jeremy's just working daily, installing them. And, we were keeping our head above water. And then start of this year, I was just like, I kind of want to just step back a little because we were doing pretty good revenue, but not making the profit we needed. And it's kind of been the theme since I started, just working. You get to the end of the year and realize you didn't make a lot of money. And we were working for a large builder in the area, which was a big transition because we had worked for them for about 5 years doing all of their custom homes, probably 20 to 30 a year, sometimes less. But we did all their irrigation, landscape design, and we were kind of known as their landscaper. We didn't have our own identity. Like we were kind of losing it. So everybody views us as the builder landscaper. And I realized we weren't making a lot of money. We were doing a lot of cool projects for big houses, but the budgets were so small that we'd get to the end of the year. And like this time of year, we're like, wow, we have no money. Like, what's happening? And so I decided I think it was June of 2021, we let cut ties with the builder. I wasn't the greatest at doing that. It was not a very good, clean exit, but we're still friends with one of the partners, but and friends with the other one. We just don't talk. But I would.
Yeah.
But
sure.
Definitely was a transition though, because we didn't have. I feel like we lost our identity as like a custom, like outdoor builder. Like our name says Custom Outdoor Spaces, and we weren't doing those anymore. So we kind of lost our identity. And I was trying to rebuild that and like get some cool custom projects that we could be proud of again and be profitable at. And we started with Synced Up finally in January, and finally got a system we could actually use. And we had used other software in the past we just never fully implemented it. We were using it for estimating, but didn't know our costs and what things were actually, how they were playing out in the end. So we got Synced Up implemented, started getting some better leads and plugging them in the system, realizing where all of our money was going because I just wasn't estimating accurately. And we weren't efficient in some areas, so we ended up buying the bigger International because we used to run with pickup trucks and dump trailers. Kind of got that from you. I think you had your gooseneck dump trailer. Like, that's a pretty good idea. You got run the family in your pickup truck and then drop it and pick the trailer. But then we were constantly running back and forth because we had the dump trailer, but we needed the tool trailer with all the tools, and then you'd have to drop that, go back, and then you didn't have dump capability. So I realized with the way all equipment and trucks were with inflation, like we were able to sell our old Ram for more than we bought it for after 3 years. I think we had it, and it was kind of a hard pill to swallow to sell it. But then at the same time, we bought a big International. It was able to haul like 8 ton. We both have our CDL, so I was like, we might as well utilize that.
Yeah.
And we got into that truck and paid cash for it. And with Synced Up, I also run the profit first, and I had the money in my profit account to pay cash for the truck, so I just pulled the $26,000 out, and we flew to Minnesota, picked it up, and bought it. And then it ran great for a while, and then we had, $5,000 repair here and a $3,000 one and then a $2,000 one. And I was like,
you're like, oh crap, I bought a used piece of junk.
Was this a giant mistake? But I was looking at new trucks and they're $120,000 for the same, maybe more for the same setup. So, but taking all that, I was like $36,000, and then we bought a few other pieces of equipment. So I've been trying to operate my company debt free. That was the whole big reason of selling that and kind of moving things around, because I owed money on my skid steer and some other things, and I was able to pay all that off with the money we made on the truck. But at the same time, I dropped all that cash, which kind of hurt the cash flow because I had bills coming out. And as time progressed, I was like, oh man, this is starting to hurt a little. Winter's coming, and all of a sudden our big nest egg was dwindled down because I dropped all the cash to pay for it all. So I was... Fortunately, we ended up selling some pretty nice projects towards the end of the year again, which picked up, and it kind of balanced out again, and we were able to rebuild our nest egg for the winter a little bit, and then kind of get beyond that. But I was not prepared for the cash flow crunch that created, dropping that much cash, or before I was making my payments. $1,065 on the skid steer and $400 for the Sani and $600 for I had an SK800 that we sold in January. All that stuff I just felt, I'm a Christian, and I felt like God was saying you need to become debt free, and I didn't understand why. My wife's like, well, if God's telling you to do it, just do it. And I was like, shoot, man, like this is going to change everything. So I just felt led to do it, and nobody understood why I was selling everything. But we finally got debt free, and then all this started hitting. I'm like wondering if it was the right decision, because I was starting to feel crunched and like, man, all of my money's gone again. And so we ratcheted up our prices. I called Fred, and I met with Weston for 4 hours on a Saturday, and we went through all my numbers and QuickBooks and set up a new budget to get us back on track. And that really helped change things, because I was really starting to get burnt out. And we've won a few awards this year, and I just couldn't get excited about anything, even though we did like two projects the two cool projects we did won awards. So I was like, somehow I need to get back to the point of winning the awards and designing the stuff I can be proud of, that we're not feeling burnt out building just because it's, re-landscaping Nancy's front yard or whatever. Like I want to build cool spaces that people will be inspired by to do more of, like the Backyard design we did with the art forms. People are messaging me from around the country, hey, we want to steal this design. Are you okay with it? Or how'd you do this part or that? And I was like, it was cool, because we were the first ones in the area to use it and design with the art forms. And I just kind of want to be like an industry leader again, and not just doing like the one-off landscape.
Well, I believe it or not, you are an industry leader. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you do that people look up to. And I know, so I guess I could ask this question and see if, how it goes. But what do you do to light that fire again? What are you working on to make that happen for next year, and projects and things like that?
Well, we have started working with some new designers that I'm branching out from. I mean, we have great local designers, but I wanted to start using the Lumion software, kind of more realistic designs. And then I have decided to be much more strict on the clients we're willing to meet with. Yeah. And I have my website that helps filter out a lot of people automatically, and the online scheduler, but I'm just making the extra effort to call them and see what they're interested in, what their budget really is online. Yeah. Because they'll put like a $5,000 to $10,000 budget, but it could be a $50,000 job, and they just select it because it's the lowest price on there. So I just want to see if they're wanting to do like a concrete patio, or are they really wanting to do a nice custom hardscape that we're geared towards. All of our equipment's set up for that now, and I'm just getting ready to revamp the website so that it gears more towards that kind of high-end client, and getting into some swimming pools. We're working our way into it, see how it goes. But I feel like I'd like to do some larger projects similar to what you do, but maybe half the scale. Like maybe a $150,000 project that we can do in 5 to 6 weeks or something, and turn them a little faster, but still do the full scale backyard. The last project we did at the end of the year was tricky. It was on a steep slope, and we put boulders in. It was around an existing pool that was installed too high. It felt like we weren't going to be able to do it, and I was about to just tell the homeowner, like, this isn't safe. We can't do this.
That was crazy.
And Jeremy and I put our heads together, and he was like, well, why don't we just dig a shelf with the little Sandy, work our way in to like almost like a little road, and we can build it up as we go. And it was kind of a challenge, and we finally got it done, and it looked nice. And I just every night I came home like, man, that's exciting, because I felt like we couldn't do it, and then we did. And the homeowner was super thrilled because they didn't know a good solution for it. And so I like trying to find projects that are more challenging, which all of a sudden, now that I've decided to focus on that, that's what's been. I have 3 really nice sized projects that equal more than the whole revenue we did last year just for spring that we're working on. So
it's crazy how that works.
Yeah, that's what Caleb Allman always says. Like, the more you get more of the work you do more of, or whatever.
Yeah. And I was just going to say that one of my things, it's kind of almost working backwards now, because I had said, like, when I started, I had to do some things I didn't want to do, right? 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I don't have a job, so I have to make an income. And some of the things I was doing by myself, and I was doing repair on the front wall and doing landscaping, and I was pushing through, $5,000, $3,000, anything we could get our hands on. And we got a nice little patio, and I was working an hour away. I was, I was getting referrals from a bunch of different people, which was nice, but it meant I had to travel and I was doing repair jobs and cleaning and sealing jobs. And I was like, this is not what I came back into business to do.
Sure.
I know how to do it all. I can make it happen. But I think what I really decided on was, like, just the marketing aspect was to only really showcase what I wanted to do. Right. Now we've done that. Yeah. And then all we do is show what we do, which is larger projects. And I was like, man, what I'd give for a 4-week project right now. It's like, how do you show that,
Yeah.
Go back and find a job that took me 4 weeks and post that or something. But it's always like, how do you, like, it just, the big projects are fun and they are challenging, but they're a lot of work, and they really wear on you, and they really make you work your cash flow and all that stuff. And it's really interesting, but it's they're also a big reward at the end with the how they look and all that. But I think that like, it's really fun watching, like, Jeremy with J Squared. I mean, he's putting out some awesome projects that are in that. Well, he's doing them in a week.
Sure.
How does that happen? But
take the average guy 6 to 8 weeks. But
he's got. I'm gonna have to get him on here. We'll have to talk about that. But just the efficiencies. How do we get more efficient? How do we train our guys to be geared that way and be efficient and use the tools that are provided, and like you're saying, picking jobs that are towards your strengths or towards the tools and equipment you have. I think that's a big piece of it. So, like, we've kind of just gravitated to those big projects, and they're, like I said, they're fun, but they take a long time.
Yeah. I've been getting fewer calls on small projects and more people that have bigger projects right now, which is weird because everybody's saying the economy is going to tank, but they're building multi-million-dollar houses still, like in Kansas City on the north side especially. But I don't know. I'm trying to think back to your question. Like, I spend my days listening to podcasts and motivational speakers and everything, because sometimes I feel alone in this business, and my wife wants to help, but she's not a business-minded person. She has worked for UMKC for 10 years, and Jeremy is he's more on the hands-on side, like, tell me what to do, I'll do it. And I'm like, I'm trying to cast a vision that's hard to convey to people, so I spend a lot of time. I cleaned off my whiteboard for you, but I had a giant web of kind of like where we're at, the areas I know we need. Like, I kind of view myself as, like, if I was a consulting looking in on my company, because I know exactly the issues we have and where we're weak and where we're strong and where we could use improvement on efficiencies. And we spend way too much time going to Site One and buying material and chatting with the people. And that's all thousands of dollars wasted. And there's so many areas I know we can improve on. So I just wrote them down. I made a web, and it was like a concept map or whatever you'd call it, but it just had branches on it, and I had the whole board filled in like 10 minutes just downloading my brain. And I'm like, all right, this is what we need to do on this, and this. because, you look at hiring consultants to come in and you're paying them 18, 20 grand to tell you the systems you need. We've all been through all the seminars and classes, and we just don't implement them. So I'm focusing more this year on implementing those. And I had a whole list of 2022 achievements, because I was feeling that was another thing I did. I wrote down all my achievements, and I wish I have them on my phone, but it was like 30 long, the whole length of the whiteboard. I just kept, we won the Hardscape Hero. We paid our truck in full with cash. We built this office with cash. We took my wife on our anniversary trip to Cancun with cash from our profit account, and I paid Jeremy and myself every week. Never missed it. We didn't work Saturdays. We, just tons of stuff like that. And I was like, oh, wow, we actually did do pretty good. And then we ended up with a Unilock finalist award for one of the other projects we did in the spring. And sometimes it's easy to get caught up in like where you're lacking, and you forget where you've been. And
some of those challenges you mentioned earlier were actually wins.
Yeah. So and fully implementing, synced up, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, that was a lot. And people think we're like an 8 or 10 man company sometimes, and they're shocked to know it's just my brother and I, which I'm embarrassed of. But my wife's like, "You've come so far. Like, look at you were renting space at site. Well, first I was in my rental house and out of my garage. Yeah. And then I rented space at Site 1, and we had shipping containers and worked our way from that. And then we bought this property, and you were selling your property as we bought this property. It was like we switched roles, which was crazy. But then, now we're here on 10 acres, and we have our building we run out of. And, of course, you always want it bigger, and I've got plans to do all this crazy stuff. But I'm like, sometimes you just have to step back, like, I'll see the sunset and all the equipment and different things in the barn. I'm like, I'm a pretty blessed guy. Like, must be doing something right, even though it seems like everything you do is wrong. And then you get messages on Instagram from people that are, just getting going. How are you doing this? And I'm like, oh, you don't want to be like me. And they're like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, you got everything. I'm like, so then you have to pause and go back and look around, and it's kind of
I think what you said earlier is that was fantastic. Like stepping back and look at your company like a consultant. You know, like who knows our company's better than us? And unfortunately we just get like head down looking at everything we have to do, and sometimes we lose the big picture, or sometimes we forget why we started, or sometimes we just don't step back to take, like you said, take a look. And I think that's important, and that's very smart of you to kind of stand back, especially this time of year, and go, okay, what wins do we have? What can we take into next year? Like, what do we want to improve on?
It's kind of like the football players when they lose a Super Bowl and they stay on that field and sit and feel that feeling. Like they're like, that's kind of like you get to the end of the year, you look at your bank account, and you just want to like soak that in. Like, I don't want to feel this way again. How am I going to change this next year? Like, what did I do to end up here, and how do I go from here to be where I want to be with $100,000 in the bank or whatever is going to make me feel comfortable to not panic or just relax and enjoy the snow when it's falling. I'd be like, oh, shoot, I hope it melts in 10 days because my checks, my suppliers, I owe them $27,000, and I got to figure out how to come up with this money. Like, that's not a fun place to be, or to call them and say, hey, I can't make it. And then you start paying interest or whatever. And that's really why I love Synced Up too, because they're focused on helping you thrive and not just survive. So I guess that might be my theme too. Like, I want to go from surviving to thriving in my business next year. And we have some very nice projects, fortunately, that are coming up. But a lot of guys have, and the lady I'm selling one to said she followed me on Instagram for a year. Yeah. And so that's been paying off too, even though sometimes it's embarrassing to get on there and talk, and my brother gives me a hard time, but that's been a huge part too. So,
well, I had Dylan on, and I had Andy Mulder on, and we kind of talked about that, because it is interesting, like the Instagram thing. Like, that's how we built, a network of, I wasn't even hardly using Instagram when I started contracting again. You're like, you got to get on Instagram. You should try to get on this podcast. And it's interesting how the network just blew up, and like, people, it's kind of like that small little network of people we have here. Yeah. It's like all over the country and
like
Canada.
Having whatever 2,000 free consultants at your fingertips that you can just be like, hey, message Mulder today. Hey, I'm looking at this. How do you look at this when you're considering buying something? And he laid out exactly what he does. I'm like, oh.
Wow. Yeah.
I was like, now I see why you're so successful, because you think like this, but that's why I'm blessed to have you. Just a text message away, or a direct message on Instagram, and it's just crazy. Like, and that's kind of what we have locally, is what we were talking about earlier. Like, I can message Kyle or you or anybody around, and Tracy and all these guys that we're just surrounded with, and get an answer or help, or getting into pools. I'm confident. I'm like, I told the homeowner, I was like, I have a whole slew of buddies that do pools every day, and if they don't know it, they know somebody that does. So I feel confident that going into that I'm not, we'll do the best we can, and then if we get hung up here and there, I know we can work our way through it. And so
my first pool, I'd never done one before, so it's and I'm still learning, and I think that's one area where I don't feel super confident being. That's where I'll get on Instagram and be like, I messed this up, or I have to figure this out. But like, that's one area I'm not giving a lot of advice on right now. But I think I'm far enough along now that I understand the the plumbing aspect, and the the importance of, like, we did an auto cover yesterday, and I forgot one little detail about the setup, and it almost cost us the install. Like, it was just, luckily I had our installer that's there, and he was training us so we could go forward, and he was reiterating all the things he had told me in the past, and I took some video, and one little thing on some of these things, because everything's set once it's done, and luckily he was there to help us work through it and modify a few things and make it work. So,
and this first job is us removing a botched pool job, so that's going to be another learning experience, taking one out and then putting one in, and it's just crazy because the homeowner wanted to hire some other pool companies in the area that have done them for years, but they were booked out for a long time. And the only ones available were not the best selection. And so I just told him, I'm like, hey, whether it's my first or my last pool, I'm going to put 110% into it, and it's going to be high quality, and I'm not going to leave you stranded. Something goes wrong or whatever. Like, I'm learning, but he's like, well, I have complete confidence that it'll be amazing when you guys do it. And we had a history with him from throughout the year as we built walls and things, and we were there through the whole messy process and answering questions for him. So he said, you're a little more expensive, but you're going to be with me through the entire project, and you haven't left me yet. So I appreciate that, and he gave us the job. So that's hopefully going to be soon, but as the weather breaks here. But
that's a challenge that we're facing, is like when we go to bid projects like this, and you'll probably start finding this, and basically what you're dealing with with that client is that either they've talked to a pool company or hardscape company or all these different companies, and they're like, I don't want to deal with all this. So when you can go to them and say, hey, why don't we just do the whole thing for you? It just kind of puts their mind at ease, and they don't want to go anywhere else. So, and you've been following pool companies this past year, it seemed like a bunch, and it's and I don't like to get into bad mouthing or any of that, but you've seen some stuff, and it's not pretty, and people are spending their money on just not. People are just trying to throw things in. So
put another 40 or 50 grand out to actually finish put the yard back to where it was before. After the construction's done, and they're not always prepared for that or what that cost is going to be. So you get the sticker shock in the beginning, but then when you break it down, well, this is all going to cost. And our client now, I think you met with him, and he was like, oh, he was super high, but now looking back, it really wasn't that high, because now I'm paying for it twice, and I have to have you do the landscape and the fencing and the irrigation repairs, and all that would have been included. So it's been – so just talking about these projects gets me excited again, because I was just getting in a rut, and I also haven't dropped the ball on marketing too, which I really want to get back into, and I've been asking for reviews on Google more, because we've worked for hundreds of clients and have 5 Google reviews. And I'm just like, well, this is ridiculous. And then you see your competitors that are ranking on Google, and you type in Hardscape, and all these companies come up, but they've been actively marketing and posting the Google ads and stuff. And
that's interesting to bring that up too, because I think over the last few years, like, nobody's needed that. Nobody's needed to market.
I was listening to the Green Marketer on I forget, Outer Spaces podcast, one of those, and he was saying, you know, like when you're hungry, you don't go out and plant a field. And hope that, you know, it takes months for the food to grow.
Yeah,
like you want a good crop to pick from to go pick out the best piece of corn or your watermelon. Like you're not just waiting. Oh shoot! Well, now we're short on clients. Let's start marketing. You want a whole slew of them to pick from. Like these are the top 3 out of this 15 that we have here. We're gonna work for them, and you're not just taking like word of mouth is great, but that the person telling them might have horrible friends. Like
right.
You're like, this isn't what I wanted at all, and you don't want to just rely solely on that. So you're planting your seeds before you need the crop, and then when you're ready, you've got the whole harvest to pick from, like your finest crop. Like these 3 people are going to be the $150,000 job that I'm focused on,
right?
And you're not just, oh, let's work here. We'll take this little $5,000 job because it's something to do. And you're kind of looking for crumbs and hoping to survive, and that's not thriving to me. So that's something else I'm focusing on, is to get more leads in. And then I randomly went to this breakfast the other morning where it was a big tip breakfast. We all left $100, and then the lady that was sitting next to me is a small business owner in Kearney, and I was like, what do you do? And she's like, oh, I connect service businesses with high-end clients. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, I'm looking to be connected with high-end clients. And so we connected there, and it was just like all these things started happening. And in small group, I was talking about kind of through our church. I was like, man, I'm just kind of in like a dead spot with my business. I'm just kind of losing the fire, and really love the industry, and I feel like I have a lot more to give, but I'm just kind of like at the end of my rope here. And I've got my laser business that does really well and it's taken off, and I was like, I could just do that full time and not deal with all this other garbage, but I don't know if that's what I'm being called to do or not. I was confused. And so they prayed over me, and they were like, the one lady was like, I'm seeing the color blue and then just huge opportunities for you. And she couldn't really explain it more than that. And then the next day, the guy with the pool issues messaged me and was like, hey, are you serious about like helping us with our pool? Because I've called all these companies and they said it has to come out, but we don't know who to call. And I was like, well, would you be open to me doing it? It'd be my first one, but I feel like I need to get into pools. And then he was like, well, yeah, like I'm sure we can. And then we went through that whole process, but
awesome.
Then all this stuff just starts falling into place all of a sudden. So they were like encouraging me to not quit, because I was very close to just be like, forget it. I gave it a good run, but I felt like deep inside that I hadn't given it 100% that I could put into it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, there's still more I can do, and there's a lot of people that still need help in this industry. And I've made good friends with Weston from Synced Up, and he was like, I got the same feeling. Like I was doing my exercise the other day, and you were on my heart, and was like, Josh has bigger things to achieve still. Like he shouldn't be quitting, but he's like, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to. I'm like, this is nuts. Like all this is coming together. Yep. So I'm kind of motivated to just continue on. And
well, and I like I said earlier, you give a lot to the industry, and I'm sure we all have a lot more to give, you know? So I think that those of us who've been in it for a while, you know, if you're not looking for some way to give back to it, you know, because we want this industry to keep thriving. Yeah. That's how I feel. And that's kind of why I started doing this deal. But like even like with like Synced Up, I mean, you walked up to their booth in H&A and I just followed. I follow you all the time, you know, like I guess I'll try Synced Up now. Or you told me, you know, about other things, and we just you're kind of a trailblazer in some of those, you know, avenues of the industry that are like softwares and trying equipment and trying different things. And so I think
like a little mini Jeremy Swihart.
Yeah. The influencer's influencer.
He switched too. He went Synced Up, and Richard Carroll, all those guys are like, dude, why are you switching? I'm like, Synced Up, I just like Synced Up. Like I felt part of their family, and like it was a service that would work like perfectly with our company. So
and it's been a big help for us too, because we were trying to stumble through Element, and I think Element's a great program probably for the right company.
Sure.
But what I was finding was that like it was just really hard to implement, and I'm not a computer guy, and I don't go back to my office every night and punch numbers and make Excel spreadsheets and compare things and all that stuff. In fact, I've fallen behind on getting things back into synced up again. So like that's where, you know, me and my guys are trying to keep each other accountable for that, you know, because it is such a good software that can just really streamline everything for you.
Yeah. It's like if you not using synced up, it's like having your tilt rotator parked in the barn and never bringing it out to the to the job site. You're like losing so much of its capabilities by just not using it. And that's another thing on my list is to in improving productivity is to actually utilize synced up to its fullest and get something like the Zapier and all that integrated so that I can do more with the technology instead of me having to manually do everything. It'll just automatically enter stuff, and that's saving us labor and office staff. And
I'm finding that like I just feel like the push to keep like progressing on a job and on these big projects, I just feel like, man, we've been here forever. We're way over. We got to be way over time. We got to, you know. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, we're actually a little on time or a little under. Like this area we went over a little bit, but we're and it's like okay, maybe I'm just overreacting, or maybe I'm feeling the pressure from another part of my business, or it's like
you know, that was the same on our last project with the boulders. Like that took us some time to figure out, so. We were way over on the landscape side, but then we made up for it on the sod and the irrigation and the other areas, and we came out perfect. I knew we ended up like an hour and a half over, but I was like, man, I thought we like just got murdered, but then that was a nice scoreboard, and we got some material cheaper and different things that worked out, and so it was cool because in the past I've never known. You're just working and working, and you don't know if you're winning or losing or till the end of the year when the tax man comes and you're like, oh, shoot.
Yep.
You know, I wasn't prepared for any of this.
Yeah.
And that happened a little bit this year, but it's much better. And we have the systems in place now to utilize. So. And
I told, we kind of had our season abruptly brought to an end yesterday. You know, it was cold yesterday, but it was really cold today.
You just wish you had 10 more days or 5 days.
Yeah. So, but I was telling Byron, I said, you know, like, I feel like we're in a good spot on this project. I just don't feel it mentally, you know? So I'm like, I'm going to use some time of cold weather to go back and look at, we started synced up in January. So if I can go back and try to look at hours and recreate and see, I know it's not going to be 100% accurate, but at least it's kind of like, okay, this project, I put in this many hours. It actually is taking that many hours. So how many hours can I actually put in next year, you know? And then how many guys, I think what I was trying to figure out is how many guys do I need to add to get to the budget that I set? Because I put another guy in, right? Or I put two people in or whatever it was.
Yeah.
If I don't get those two people, then I'm not able to recreate the man hours that gets me to my end goal for the year. So, and I think you were talking about, you know, facing that a little bit this year where you had plans of hiring and you didn't.
Yeah, we had our budget was set to $250,000 more than we actually did. So that's when I had to stop and reset with Fred and Weston and say, all right, doesn't look like we're going to hit the revenue goal.
Right.
We're still producing and doing well, but I wanted to make sure all of our budgets and estimates from then on were accurate and correct, because I was like, we're going to be way off, because I was planning to hire 2 other guys and maybe a foreman, and then I had an office admin figured in. I had all these lofty goals of things I wanted, and then work started happening, and we were just taking it, and I just was like, well, let's see where we end up with just 2 people. And I guess it was kind of a learning year. Like, I kind of wanted to slow down so we could go forward. Like they say, like, stop, back up before you can go ahead. So I wanted to just see how we did with 2 people that we could be much more productive than we were, but we were still did really well for a 2-man company. And I'm happy where we ended up, but next year we're definitely going to use what we learned to propel ourselves ahead, and it's shaping up to be a great year. So I'm excited for winter to move on and spring.
It just started.
Yeah, I know. For us, we've been spoiled with really nice warm weather until this hit, but we were pushing it, and the guy with the pool was like, so can you start next week? I'm like, well, it's not really conducive for pool install weather, but
it's going to be 45 on Wednesday.
Yeah, so maybe we can rip her out.
You know, luckily we didn't get a bunch of snow. I was worried we'd get 5 inches of snow and then it'd melt and we'd be out for another week.
Yes. So
well, any closing thoughts or advice for anybody? Maybe it's going through a similar, challenge that you are. I mean, I know RC told me he wanted to hear a rant from Josh Sutton.
He's going to be with me at Aqualand here in January, so it'll be exciting to see him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say just take time to, like I said, step outside. Look at your company from an outsider's perspective, and we all know, just like our marriages and everything, we know where we're sucking it up, and we need to do better and focus on that, and just be willing to make the hard decisions and propel yourself ahead through those. Because I don't know how many classes I've sat through, and I know exactly what we need to do. It's just a matter of doing it, not being lazy, and focusing on the air. And it's easy to get overwhelmed. Like you listen to all these podcasts and people are telling you to do this and that. And so you get like analysis paralysis and you don't know what to do. So you just freeze. And I'm just trying to focus on one thing at a time. I can better this one area. I can get my synced up templates done and enter the job costing from one job.
Right.
And don't just eat the whole elephant at one time. Or like the other day, we were like, our trailer's a mess. One of our keys this year is to get more organized. So let's take the trailer apart and organize it and set it back in place how we want it. And we did that. So check that off, and just one thing at a time. And it seems slow, but all of a sudden you look around and you're like, oh, this is much better. This is something I can grow on and build on and not be embarrassed when new employees come in. So
yeah. And I think one thing that I need to work on is because I'm such a workaholic. Like I want to be out there all the time, But I think like scheduling and downtime, because I feel like we're always behind and we've always overpromised and we're just trying to catch up. And like you have to, once I feel like I've gotten good data from, our softwares and things like that, I want to make sure that I have set like, we're on a job for 3 months. We could easily take a week and just be like, okay,
reset.
Let's calm down a little bit. Let's clean the trailer. The trailer didn't work this way, or let's fix it, or like let's work on this piece of we don't do a lot of maintenance on our equipment because we're not mechanics. So I try to just hire that out or have the dealers do it or whatever. But maybe we just need a break.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need to just go from finishing one really strong and then go into the next one and be like, all right, gung ho, let's dig a hole.
You can't just turn it around.
But those times have to be budgeted in as well, because if you I don't want to not pay my guys for that week that we need to kind of chill out and work on things or organize a shop or do inventory on things we need for coming up. Or maybe we had a warranty call, that's where I'm struggling too, is we don't have time to go do warranty calls. And I don't want to leave people hanging on that stuff. So I think, it's tough. Yeah. Running a business is tough. And I think people
for sure.
Yes. So
I don't think anybody knows what they're getting into. When you go from a regular job to being the man that's in control of everything that has to be done, it's a lot, and it can take a toll on you. Something else, if you're out there and you're feeling overwhelmed, do not hesitate to reach out to anybody or talk to them, me or Craig, or I know any number of people on Instagram.
Absolutely.
Are more than happy to chat and get together. If you're local, I'll get together, have some coffee, and hopefully talk you off the ledge, because we all need it sometimes. And between your family and the business and everything you've got going on, and then we let our health slip, and especially this time of year, we got a box of cookies here. But I
really beat myself up this year.
Yeah, we're not getting younger, so that's another thing too. It's kind of weighing on me too. I'm like, man, I've been in this 8 years. Like, where are we headed? We can't just keep doing what we've been doing every year. The definition of insanity. So I'm just trying to focus in on how I can improve and grow to a point where we're not having to do everything ourselves and can be proud of it. There was one thing I heard on a podcast was like, as a business owner, your job isn't to do the job, it's to create jobs for other people.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm focused on too. I want to create a place where it's fun to come to work and people enjoy it, can be proud of where they work and not just collect a check. So if I can get to that point, then all those people bring their friends, and it's just like if you want to do pools, you start doing pools. If you want to have good employees, hire good employees, and they'll attract more good employees. It's the same principle. So,
well, hopefully you have some people listening, and I think what's really cool about you is, like we mentioned earlier, like with this the camaraderie of the competition, and in a way the relationship building and all that stuff. Hopefully that's something that can start taking off in areas, because I feel like we're kind of better together in a way, like we can help each other, or we can bounce things, or just like frustrations, or this job is this and that, or whatever. And it's just like sometimes you just need to vent, and like you were saying, sometimes our spouses aren't in with us and they don't necessarily understand, and so we can it gives us a kind of a release of getting the frustrations out there, or what we're dealing with, or wins, or just. So it's really cool. I appreciate what you do in the industry, because you are influencing people on Instagram and around Kansas City, and I think a lot of people look up to you. I know I do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise.
So are you traveling around this winter and going to see people?
Yeah, we're
places?
going to Aqualand January 9th and 10th. I was invited out there. So I think Richard Carroll and Nick from Nicholas Landscaping will be there, and then Matt from Picture Lake. So it'll be cool to get together with all them again. We had the Bro Life breakfast at H&A. That was amazing. Then we had like all the heavy hitters showed up, and it was just cool to be a part of. Craig and I brought our campers, and then Jamie from Supremescape was there with his camper, and John Seeger, and then we had
that was a great time.
So many guys that were awesome that came out and supported us early in the morning on Friday before we all left, and it was just cool to see everybody there, and kind of all the Instagram really brought us all together. Yeah. And then we got to see each other in person and chat, and
that's
it
really
just
cool.
made me feel like I wasn't alone again in there. And like I was like, I don't want to leave all this. This is like the industry I've invested a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. So, all that stuff just builds on itself. But I'm just really feel blessed to be in this industry. My wife's always like, man, you guys just have like a tight-knit group. Like it's really cool how the landscape industry just sticks together. Like I don't know if plumbers and electricians all have the same deal on Instagram or what, but
that'd be interesting.
I feel like we have a really close-knit, it's a large group, but we all know about what's happening because we follow the stories, and oh man, you had to rip that pool out, that sucks, and blah blah blah. Like we all have our highs and lows, and it's just neat. So I guess that's why I get in trouble with my wife, because I'm always on my phone chatting. She's like, I wish you'd chat with me as much as you do all these other people. I'm like, got to do better about that for sure. But
it is cool to have the network and just be able to, I always find it interesting when people ask for advice, and I'm like, and sometimes it's people I want to ask advice from, it's like, so it's really cool to just have, everybody has different strengths and different weaknesses, and it's really, really nice to have that, just that network of people.
Yeah, I always feel humbled when like Zach Hinkle message, hey, what kind of equipment do you use for this? Or how are you doing this? I'm like, you're running a $3.5 million company, and why are you asking me? But it's like, my wife's like, well, you're a smart guy. I'm like, okay, I got to give myself some credit.
Yep. I think we all fall into those times where we're just like, we beat up on ourselves, and we don't think that we've accomplished as much as we have.
Talk so bad to ourselves, things we'd never say to anyone else, we say to ourselves every day, and it starts to having a toll. So just another thing I was working on was trying to speak positive thoughts into myself, like, man, that does look cool.
Yeah,
I did a good job with that, or
yeah,
not just constantly talking, man, I could have done better on that, or I don't know what we're doing here, and it just starts to take a toll. So
well. Everybody knows where to find you, but you might as well tell them.
Just pretty much Sutton Outdoor LLC on Instagram, and then I have my laser scaper business. It's Laser Scaper on Instagram. If you need any custom patch hats or anything, we've been busy with that with winter here. Got a board full of orders, and
that's awesome.
I have about a 2-week turnaround on them right now, and we're able to get some hats again, so it's been good. But
and we're in your newish office.
Yeah, the newish office from. I think we finished it late summer, and it's keeping us warm now and gives us a nice space to meet with future employees. I just wanted a place to meet and plan jobs and do interviews and all that. So I'm excited to have this place too.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thanks for joining me or letting me come over, right?
Thanks for coming over on such a cold day.
Yeah, hopefully my truck starts.
Yes. The old diesels sometimes have issues with that, huh?
Yep. Well, thanks again, and I think 2023 is going to be great for you, and I can't wait to see it happen, and I'll be here to encourage you if you need it. So
same here. Appreciate it, man.
All right. We'll see you.